From Worldwide Technology, this is the AI Proving Ground podcast. AI is moving beyond prompts and copilots, and it's becoming orchestrated, agentic, a system of intelligent teammates that can act, coordinate, and accelerate work across every corner of your business. And the breakthroughs coming out of companies like Microsoft are pushing that shift from the edges to the center of modern business. We're watching AI evolve from a developer's tool into an everyday capability. Natural language workflows, teams of agents collaborating in parallel, digital systems that don't just respond, they anticipate, decide, and execute. And as you'll hear from Microsoft AI futurist Marco Casalaina and WWT CTO Mike Taylor, these tools move from single assistants to teams of AI agents. That's forcing enterprises to rethink the very architecture of work, how tasks are organized, how decisions get made, and how humans manage a digital workforce that operates at a speed we've never seen before. This is the future, and it's arriving faster than any of us expected. So let's jump in.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's have a seat.
All right.
Let's have a seat. So my first question, and this was probably one I asked you the first time we met. It's like the coolest, can we put it back up real quick? It's like the coolest friggin' job title ever.
Yeah, my job title, I do have an unusual job at Microsoft.
Yeah, well tell me, what does that mean? What does that mean, Futurist?
Yeah. Well, I am VP Products of Core AI, but yes, my other title, my Silicon Valley title, and I come from Silicon Valley, is AI Futurist. And concretely what that means, actually, is that I get to be the first person to play with anything new all the time. And it's true. I mean, It's crazy. You would not believe what I was doing this weekend. It was nuts.
Tell me about it.
So, one of the things that is going to happen, and I think, Nate actually referred to it also, is that, we think about these coding assistants and these advancements, and we'll talk about those things in a minute, they have a tendency to expose themselves first in the world of code, in the developer's world, because that's where we are. We build for ourselves. But some of the stuff I was playing with this weekend that I didn't even tell you about earlier is really aimed at the business user. And so, one of the things that I can do now that I just did this weekend is in M365 Copilot, I can go in there now and just like even the janitor can do what I'm about to say. I could say, if Mike Taylor sends me an email and he's requesting a meeting at a given time, then go look at my calendar, check it out, make sure it's open. If it is, send him an invite. If it's not, then suggest another time.
What if you don't want to meet with Mike Taylor?
Well, then I can make a workflow that says, if Mike Taylor sends me an email, tell him to go pound sand.
Yeah, I was just asking.
Absolutely.
Just asking for 200 or so friends out in the audience. Yeah.
But this is not a coding assistant anymore. This is actually becoming more and more accessible to everybody. Everybody can use this thing. It's in natural language. You can see it grow the little workflow, a little tree that comes out where it makes a little tree. It's like, okay, email comes from Mike Taylor. What do? I go check the calendar and that kind of thing. So it's moving quite rapidly into the realm of the everyday person.
So do you kind of from what we just covered and what Nate covered, this idea that the developer is one of the best personas served today in terms of true agentic assistance. What patterns do you see in that take us to other roles or functions throughout the enterprise? How do you and Microsoft think about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I mean, I'm going to be talking about what Microsoft is doing, but also what I'm talking about. Everybody's doing this, right?
Yeah,
We're doing it. Google's doing it.
Yeah.
And I get to use everything, right? I use Claude Code. I use Gemini CLI. I use everything. So I'm not limited. But what is happening right now, none of the things I was doing this weekend was I was using a team of agents. And this is going to become a thing. Now, most people, by this point, most of you here in this room have some number of agents in production today. Let's say double-digit number of agents. Some of you may be, a couple of hundred. But the concept of a team of agents is a little bit abstract right now. Well, in the world of coding, there exists already this notion of a team of agents. You can provision one in GitHub Copilot. You can make one in Claude Code. And that means that you have multiple agents doing different things at the same time. When that happens, the challenge is you need an organizational principle. And there's a little bit of a mental load there. Now, fortunately, in the world of development, we already have an organizational principle that works, and it's the notion of bugs or issues in GitHub. So these are a logical separation of jobs. This bug is your bug. This bug is his bug, and so on. And so I can do that. I can make a whole bunch of bugs, and simultaneously assign them to a bunch of agents, which will go work on each one at the same time. And then I become the bottleneck. That's the challenge. So you have to think about the organizational principle of how do I organize the work among these agents, but then you have to think about, all right, well, now how do I review that work? How do I, as the manager of this team of agents, how do I make sure that they did it right? So when I do this coding, and I do this all the time, where I will in fact assign 4 different bugs to 4 different agents at the same time, I can make more. I don't even know what the limit is, to be honest, but I can make more, and I don't make more than 4 because I become the limiting factor. Yeah. They start throwing the stuff back at me fast and furious, and I have to review their work. I have to check for, sometimes they conflict with each other. They code in the same place, and they make a merge conflict. I have to deal with that, and I just have to test it and make sure that they actually did what I told them to do. Yeah. And so these are the challenges that you're going to find now as you all will start to get over the next 2 years or so into this world of teams of agents.
Yeah, and I think, just for the audience and connecting to some of the topics we went through yesterday, we think about that in our business, both from an offensive and defensive perspective within cyber. We think about it within the productivity of what we're trying to drive within the organization, and certainly in terms of how we evolve or think about evolving our business models. Those agents, and I'd say more bought into this today than even last year when we were talking about it, the idea that an employee, a human being, is going to have 10, 20 or more, maybe doing different things, for you, we believe strongly that's a reality. Then it introduces, okay, well, that's going to require a lot of imagination and thinking from everybody of how do we redo or rethink how we do work.
Right.
And I would say even within the coding assisted space, we cover the technology, we talk about the impact that it can have on businesses and companies. But there's a human and there's a people and process element of this that's critically important to go with just this is the best tool, that's the best tool here for those different use cases. So as you think about organizations or what you're seeing within Microsoft at scale, how do you all handle that from an end? You're kind of you're tinkering with the stuff on the front end. But at scale, what are some of the things you see Microsoft doing with it?
Well, certainly, one of the key things that we have to do to scale our tools, and we do have some of the most popular tools in M365 Copilot, GitHub Copilot, that are used in the world today. Yeah. And I got to say, it's unsexy, but the evaluation stuff on the back end. So we are exposing these agents to the world. And we have to evaluate that these things actually work, or at least mostly work. Mm-hmm. And so we have invested a lot in making sure that we can evaluate these tools at scale. You kind of have to do, for those of you who are familiar with development, we have always done what we call unit testing, this kind of automated testing that tests every time you check something in, make sure you didn't break anything. Well, now we have to do this kind of unit testing for AI, for something that is inherently non-deterministic, that gives you a different answer every time or does a different thing every time. And that becomes increasingly important now, especially now that we're moving past the era where just agents answer questions. There's a lot of question answering agents out there, but now we're getting to a point where they're starting to do things. They will file a ticket in ServiceNow, or they'll go take some action in SAP. Mm-hmm. And as we get there, it becomes increasingly important that these things act correctly.
Yeah, and we've talked so far really about digitizing kind of digital or non-physical things. Robotics is a big trend out there, right? And in the industrial base, you all understand this very, very well. Use cases that we're seeing or contemplation into not just autonomous vehicles, but beyond industrial manufacturing use cases. A little bit maybe as these agents go from sort of digital assets to physical assets. How do you think about that? I got a friend up here.
I think you're going to see a lot of the same evolution that we saw in AI. I've been doing AI for like 15 years. It's hard to tell how old I am because there's not a gray hair on my head. But I've been doing this for a while. And the evolution of AI has been, we started with these purpose-specific models. So these things that do things like OCR, they read documents, and language models and stuff like that. And we moved towards these general purpose foundation models that we all know and love today. Now, in robotics, we are in the purpose-built part of that story still. So the other day, I was just talking to the exec team at John Deere. And John Deere has had a lot of success lately with their autonomous tractors and autonomous harvesters. So they have these things that will basically crawl through a farm and pick all the corn and all that kind of stuff. without the farmer even having to be in it. The farmer could be standing alongside it, just watching it go. Yeah. But that's a very purpose-built kind of a robot. Now, I mean, at Microsoft, we do have a robotics lab, and they are putting these things together. So what is happening now, in the world of large language models, we are starting to see the rise of general-purpose agents. Microsoft 365 Copilot is one of them. Perplexity is another one. Manus is another one. There are a set of them. So you start to see these general-purpose agents coming on the scene. There will be an age, although I don't think it's that close to it.
Yeah, what's the time? Yeah, when you think about
physical, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all, I don't know how many of you saw that 1X's Neo robot that they just launched. It's it's all decked out in felt. It's like 5'6", and it can kind of take the dishes out of your dishwasher and put them in your cabinet and that kind of thing. But it's still super nascent, and I don't think that Neo robot will be that reliable yet. But yeah, over the next 3 to 5 years, we probably will be entering a world where we put the reasoning capabilities of the agent orchestrators that we have today for large language models together with robotics, the physical capabilities that robots have, and we create more general purpose robots towards a future like Bicentennial Man. If you haven't seen Bicentennial Man, the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams in like 1997, it's actually probably how this is going to go.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, some of these films, you know, one, they set a high standard for what we all have to do, you know, in terms of imagination. But, you know, it does feel like the momentum around robotics, and I'd be interested in how you think about the impact of model development on robotics or physical AI use cases, and some of the advancements that we've seen in world models and other things that are assisting with that training. Digital twins has been a big topic in and amongst this audience as well. So your perspectives in that area.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that we are moving towards now, you know, we started with large language models. Today, the term large language model is kind of a misnomer, because the fact is that for most large language models today, you can feed in at least language and images. There are other types that we now call omni models, where you can feed in language, images, and voice, like audio. And so we're moving towards this realm where these models can take many more modalities as input and can output many more modalities. Those modalities can include robotic movements or sensor data in, robotic movements out, and those kinds of things. So I anticipate that what will happen over the next few years, like there are standalone action models, there are standalone like world understanding models, and the challenge is they only get a piece of the puzzle. So what I anticipate will happen over the next few years is that we'll start to see omni models with greater modality, and those modalities will include the ones that are used by robots.
Yeah, no, very good. And you know, one thing I wanted to throw out there, and then if we have any questions, we have time for one or two. You know, as I look at the evolution of the models, the development of these, I think inference and edge use cases. So today we've talked a lot about these gigawatt data centers and big facilities that are supplying the compute and ultimately the tokens that we're all using. As robotics will be one influence, but I think there are a number of other industrial and enterprise use cases out there. The distribution of these workloads out to the edge, and considerations or thoughts you have on what we all ought to be thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. As part of my job, I do a lot of work with the space agencies, and I hang out with the NASA folks a lot. And on their spacecraft, they're looking to put generative AI literally on the spacecraft. But it has to be done on the edge because there's no clouds in space. And so, we're working with them on that, and so is Google, for that matter.
They may have more. It sounds like they're going to do a spaceship thing. I heard.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to do that, but I mean, in space, I mean, power is limited, and your processing capability is limited. So, still, as it stands right now, small language models, the kind that run on the edge, are still very nascent, not super capable yet. I mean, you could try them. We have one ourselves called 5.4. And so you can try that yourself. It'll run on most of your laptops and some of your phones even. But I mean, relative to the really frontier models like GPT-5, not as good.
Yeah.
Not yet.
No, very good, very good.
Okay, what today's conversation makes clear is this. The future of AI won't be defined by any single model, tool, or even a breakthrough, but how we learn to work alongside a new class of digital teammates. Agentic systems, multi-agent workflows, natural language automation. These aren't experiments anymore. They're the early signals of a workplace where humans stop wrestling with complexity and start directing intelligence. This episode of the AI Proving Ground podcast was co-produced by Naz Baker, Kara Kuhn, and Diane Swank. Our audio-video engineer is John Knobloch. My name is Brian Felt, and we'll see you next time.